Johnny Cycles with CyclesGaming.com, bringing you another edition of Keeping Modern Janky. You can see what we're looking to do here: ramp into some Titania, Protective Argoth, and sack our lands in order to win with a bunch of 5/3 elemental tokens. So we don't really have our sack outlet. We have two sack outlets in the deck: the new to modern Sylvan Safekeeper and Zuran Orb. So we have ways to sacrifice our lands on our opponent's instep at instant speed. We have 7 ways total to then get a bunch of 5/3s. This is my third practice match. So far my first 2 practice matches didn't get past game 1 due to opponent scooping early. And speaking of that, I may have to scoop early in this practice match, given that I have to leave in about half an hour. We'll see how fast the game goes. Sylvan Grazer is good. But I'd rather get down the Incubation Druid, I think. Just for synergies. They may have that spell snare. That's seeing a lot of play now. And they do. Gonna spell snare my Incubation Druid? That's fine. That's fine. Would rather you had not. And now we are hoping not to have a Ragavan dashed in against us, since our shields are down, but we'll see. So I'm playing a Boreal Grazer to get our land count high. I mean, Utopia Sprawl is good as far as ramp. We're seeing the drawback of ramping with the Boreal Grazer here, though, in that we don't have another land to put into play if we don't draw one. However, it does allow us to increase our land count fast, so that with Titania we have at least, hopefully, 5 or 6 lands, assuming we don't. I mean, we have like Incubation Druid for ramp, so it's possible we have only 5, but 5 or 6 to 7 even. All right, another land's good. I'm gonna counter our Boreal Grazer with another spell snare. Alright, well, we're getting to that stage where we have the Titanias, but they are going to have counterspell magic up. We do have the 2 of them, though. We also don't even have our sack outlets yet, so Titania is only going to be so powerful against what our opponent's up to. And they're going to have things like Preordain, sure, so they have counter magic. They're going to have ways to interact with our creatures. And without a sack outlet, we don't really have... These Titanians aren't that great. What we would love to see right here is like a Yavimaya Coast or something. Even though the Titania is not going to resolve. Hey, it's going to Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. I mean, that's what I meant. It's exactly what I meant when I said Yavimaya Coast. Well, we'll run it out there. I mean, it's going to get countered. But we'll do it anyway. We got to run our opponents out of counter spells anyway, and we don't have the sack outlet for the land, so they can just bolt it in response, or with this trigger on the stack, bolt the Titania, and we get no value out of it, and they can hold on to their counter spells. Assume that's what's about to happen. Galvanic Discharge, excuse me, that's the new lightning bolt. Why does it keep showing me this? Yes, I want to take the Verdant Catacombs. Why do you keep showing it to me? What am I doing wrong? I'm sure I'm doing something wrong. Alright, so opponent passes that test without even having to use a counter spell, so good for them. Good for our opponent. Meanwhile, they have 5 cards in hand and we have 2. So what are they gonna draw, and what are they gonna even try to commit to the board at this point? Seeing as they surely have the counter magic that they need to interact with what we're doing. So we would like, I mean, the One Rings are another useless Fatal Push. Alright, well, I mean, I don't even know what to do, to be honest. I don't think anything we cast is going to resolve. Our opponent's refusing to do anything, so I think we just keep drawing cards. And then hope that they decide to commit something to the board, and then we'll Fatal Push it, and then we can stick her on Titania. So you see the synergies, Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, aka Yavimaya Coast. Makes our fetch lands tap for green, so we don't have to sack them until after we untap with our Titania, if we ever get it resolved. But we do play the 7 Salk outlets, Zorn Orb and Sylvan Safekeeper. What is our opponent going to decide to do? I mean, if they're going to do nothing, we'll do nothing. We'll just keep drawing cards until we find some sort of... Questing Beast is good. So Questing Beast will bait out a kill spell or a counter spell. So that is something. They don't have any energy, I don't think. So chances that they have a counter spell are pretty great. We'll just, now that we have something to do, run out the Questing Beast into their counter spell. Maybe this will get to them to pull their trigger on a creature of some kind. They're missing mana. They might be missing a white source too. Typically, I would expect this to be a Just Guide deck from what I've seen. From the Pro Tour at least. But it could just be Izzet. Could be Izzet Murktide. So that resolves. And then I think they'll probably end up killing it somehow. They do have some number of... See, they have a land, instant, sorcery. So they're still missing Delirium. I just don't see this one. I don't see us doing damage. I see them doing 2 kill spells then if they let it resolve, but maybe not. Maybe they don't have it. It's interesting. What are they afraid of exactly? If they don't, unless they just don't have counter spells and they have a handful of white cards and no white mana. That could be it. Subtlety maybe. But why take the hit? Okay, they're going to draw 2 cards, try to find a white source. I see what they were trying to decide. So they could have countered that spell, or they were like, we need to find our white source. So what can we take a hit and hope to draw a white source? We can't keep missing land drops, and we can't keep missing our colors, if that's what they're missing. Either way, they're missing land drops, so they're digging for lands. Okay. So I assume that's what they were trying to decide. And now they have a handful of cards, so surely many ways to answer what we're doing. But again, if they're not going to commit anything to the board, we'll just fill our hand with cards too. The One Ring doesn't get them out of this because the Questing Beast doesn't care about that. Is it Just Guy? We're about to find out. Is it Murktide? It looks like is it Murktide or is it Murktide? I mean, we will continue to swing in with our Questing Beast. See what our opponent does. I mean, a Murktide isn't great for us by any means. But if they do Subtlety, hard cast, we will, with the trigger on the stack, they'll wait till the end step though. They're not going to do it on. So should we even run out the Arboreal Grazer? I don't think so. Alright, I'm expecting something out of our opponent. They must have the most unlucky hand. Subtlety or card draw, I guess, is what's going to happen here. Snapcaster Mage. for Archmage's Charm, I think. Draw 2 more cards. Desperately digging for something. Some sort of threat, I assume. Yeah, so we have Endurances in the sideboard that we can bring in. I don't know what else we have. I mean, we do play Thoughtseize, so that could be something to bring in. Damnation. I don't to answer the Murktide, but Damnation feels bad. Just answer Murktide. Okay, they're up to 9 or 10 cards now. 9. They need 2 spells to kill our questing beast. My neighbor's dogs back at it, barking at anything and everything. They have 8 cards. They must have found the 2 kill spells. I mean, it's our Murktide. They have to have found something, right? They could have Snapcastered for the Galvanic Discharge if they had a second one in their hand, but they did not. Interesting. We're going to be up to 5 cards. Ooh, boy. And we got lucky without hitting lands. I mean, if we can make land drops, we can eventually get to the point of casting something to draw out. You know, like cast the One Ring. Flare Cultivation. Alright. That's good. That gives us some land drops. You gonna do something now, opponent? Tishana's Tidebinder. Okay. So we know they have that. Another Snapcaster Mage. Okay. I wonder if they think they can block. I doubt they think they can block, but maybe. We'll find out based on what they target. I assume this time they're targeting the Galvanic Discharge. Yeah. Going to cast the Galvanic Discharge and still have... mana up for Spell Snare. Okay, sure. Then they have a Lightning Bolt, I guess. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, this is the time. We got to pull the trigger on it. I'm just trying to decide. We really needed... We need a land in the graveyard to get back with the Titania. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can get 2 5/3s at this point, and that's just not a lot. Subtlety, though, would be bad for us. That's what they might have. That might be why they went and pulled the trigger. I mean, they were taking a lot of damage, but they could have... Yep, subtlety it is. Well, I mean, you can only do so much, right? Opponent's down to 3 cards. We're running out of cards. We're running them out of cards at least. Maybe we can continue putting the pressure on them enough. We don't want to shuffle away our Titania, so we're not going to do Flare Cultivation yet. We'll have 6, so we have the blockers to protect our life total. They're going to be up to 4 cards. Is it one of them a Murktide, and is that going to matter? They do have the 2 energy. The thing is, we know that they know what we're drawing. I'm still expecting a counterspell out of them, especially with a Preordain. And so we're kind of left back to just hoping to run them out of cards. So I think we will probably not cast the Titania yet. Scry's 2 top. Well, that's pretty good for them, huh? So the Titania, I mean the Titania, we made them use their resources to stop the questing beast. Tap down far enough, but the free spells in modern, they're pretty good. And now they have counter magic mana for days, plus subtlety mana for days. So we'll just Flare Cultivation, see what they do. If they want to counter this or not. I don't know why they would. It does allow us, though, to... I mean, ramp pretty significantly. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. So if we draw a land... I mean, we're in a position now where we can like bait out a counterspell with a 1 ring if we draw a land in the 1 ring. Or bait out a counterspell with Titania. We need another mana for that. I mean, we need to hit our 9th mana. So we have 4 drops that we can use to bait out a counterspell. We also have some 2 drops that are fairly powerful in their own right if we can draw one of them and see if our opponent wants to counter those instead. They know we have the Titania, so they're going to want to make sure to have 2 counterspells up at all times. So I don't see how like a Bristly Bill, for instance, while it can take over a game in the right spot, especially this late game with all this mana, I'm not so sure they're going to waste a counterspell on it unless they have 2. So we're kind of at a place where we want to make land drops, and have multiple threats. And our opponent is just... Right now, they don't have a way to even put any pressure on our life total. And so at some point, they're going to want to probably lightning bolt these grazers in order to start pressuring our life total to force our hand. Otherwise, we could sit behind these grazers and do nothing while we both just sit here and draw cards. And they're drawing into something like Murktide and a bunch of interaction. I'm assuming Murktide. And we're drawing into things that can take over a game too, so without the interaction. So we're hoping to find some lands and spells. There's our Bristly Bill. Whenever a land enters under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So that's 1, 2. So they, 5 cards. What's the chances they have multiple counter spells? Probably pretty good. So I think we're going to continue to wait. And our sideboard plan against this deck, I'm not sure we'll get to the second game though, is going to be Thought Seizes and Endurances. So that we can Thought Seize to bait out a counterspell, as well as Endurances to clear up the graveyard. We know they play the Tidebinder, which is a good way to Flame of Anor. So this is what I was talking about. They're going to draw 2 and kill this. So they're going to refill their hand, clear their way for getting in some damage now every turn to try to close out this game or force our hand to do it into doing something. I think we would probably like to see something like Questing Beast or the 1 ring, seeing what they get up to, because then we can 1 ring to draw out a counterspell into Bristly Bill or Questing Beast. If we have the both of them. Right now we have 1 ring to get into Bristly Bill to grow it, But they have 2 energy already, so we need to grow it out a range of 5 energy, and that seems like asking a lot, especially with Flame of Anor. This is where maybe I want Cavern of Souls. We only play, I think, the 4 basics. I think I need to up my basic count as well for the late game Flare of Cultivation. I went all in on the fetch lands thinking, okay, that gives us the most potential with Titania out. But you can see if we draw Flare of Cultivation, it's just a dead card now. We don't even get to... Wow, our opponent's really doing some ramping over. I think they're struggling with tapping for green. They're very... because of the Yavimaya Cradle of Growth. Alright, there you go. Giving something haste. What's it gonna be? Crackling Drake is an 8/4. Very nice. I like it. That is a pretty big... that's a pretty big beater right there. So before they draw a card, we will attempt a Fatal Push. Maybe this will bait out a spell. A counter spell of some kind. They know about the Titania, so they're in the tank thinking, how do we risk it? Do we play the... do we let it die and hope to find another threat? Did we finally break our control opponent's will to play Magic, so they're just tired of us waiting? We waited them out, so they're going to go for it before we do. Spell Snare gets our Bristly build too. That is a problem. Opponent may be deciding not to counterspell. Or not to counter the Fatal Push. So best case scenario for our opponents, they can Spell Snare this Bristly build while still holding up a counterspell. That's unfortunate for us. Alright, that's cool. I haven't seen that card in a while. Crackling Drake. What do we draw? Flare of Cultivation. I think I spoke it and it came into being. So Flare of Cultivation is quite literally a dead draw now because of our mana base that I put together. So this is why you tested the decks. It's my third game really. And I didn't change it after the first 2 when I realized I probably need more basics just to get some more practice in. But it synergizes nicely with Bristly Bill. So we're looking at Spell Snare being a problem, that we could easily just run out Bristly Bill into a Spell Snare. So I think we're gonna... I hate waiting, especially because I'm looking at that clock. There's no way we're gonna get to game 2. So this is like, we're all in here on one game against our control opponent. They're at 7, we're at 11, we're taking 2 a turn. They have all the manas and a ton of cards. We have a dead card, 2 bait, 1 bait spell and a finisher, but the bait spell can get spell snared. So it doesn't even draw out the counter spell that we were hoping it does. Opponent's just going to sit back and hit for 2 a turn and make us do something. We're going to wait him out, though. I'm sure it's going to go perfectly well for us. Yeah, I mean, this is what they wanted. That's why it was okay earlier when we had both Arboreal Grazers. We could just sit back. behind the arboreal grazers and chump block, and it forced them to have to do something. So now we run out one bristly bill and expect it to get spell snared. It does not. Probably just gets killed then. But double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So that's cool. We have the mana now to fetch, trigger landfall, and pump it in response to a kill spell from them. Gonna just draw some cards maybe. Maybe not. Flame of Anor, draw some cards. It's nice that with some of these more powerful spells, now they're going to go for it. And then they're going to use a kill spell to kill the Boreal Grazer. We'll wait for us to use all of our mana. What an interesting back and forth chess match of a game this has been. Our opponent was under a little bit of pressure on their life total due to some choices they made. They could have countered the Questing Beast and then not drawn extra cards. But they used their life total as a resource to draw into what they needed. And now they're back up to 7 cards, going to draw to 8. And we have a 2/5, so that's something we can block profitably with. Thing is, they have 2 energy, so that's all it's going to take is our Flame of Anor, draw 2 cards, 5 damage again. Sure. So right now what we need is Zoran, Orb of Zoran, and we need to resolve our Titania and the Orb of Zoran to have a chance. Our opponent has 9 cards in hand. It seems pretty unlikely. 3 Flame of Anors, multiple Preordains. They have a Tishana's Tiebinder, which can counter one of the activated abilities. We're officially on a 2-turn clock, so... Alright, what do we need? Zoran Orb. I mean, anything we play will get countered. Let's just be straight about that. One way or the other. Okay, well that's a Sylvan Safekeeper. That isn't exactly what we wanted to see. But it does give us a way to sacrifice lands. So I mean, we gotta run out what we can. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So run out another Bristly Bill. See if it draws out any sort of counter magic. It does not. Run out a Sylvan Safekeeper. See if that baits out anything. So our opponent is still playing Lightning Bolts. Run out of Titania, and this will get the counter spell. Or just a subtlety. Alright, well, for CyclesGaming.com, this is Johnny Cycles. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Let's see what we would have sideboarded here. Yeah, I mean, a few things, right? Alright, well, we have to go, so I'll catch y'all on the next one. This has been another edition of Keeping Modern Janky. This is Johnny Cycles of CyclesGaming.com. If you haven't already, check out my original Magic the Gathering content over at CyclesGaming.com. I write about my various commander decks. I post articles and video of my gameplay of my various modern janky brews, and I'm publishing my science fiction fantasy novel, The Podkind, serially. If you enjoy the content, check out my YouTube channel, Johnny Cycles, and click that subscribe button. Everybody counts. As always, thanks for watching. This is Johnny Cycles. I'll catch y'all on the next one.